Crossing the Red Sea, chapter 14, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, verse 2, tell the sons of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of Philahoreth, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baalzephon. You shall encamp over against it by the sea. Verse 3, for Pharaoh will say to the sons of Israel, they are entangled, the wilderness has shut them in. Verse 4, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, and I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And they did so. Verse 5, when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed towards the people. And they said, what is this we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us? Verse 6, so he made ready his chariots and took his army with him. Verse 7, and took 600 picked chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all them. Verse 8, and the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the sons of Israel as they went forth defiantly. Verse 9, the Egyptians pursued them, all of Pharaoh's horses and chariots, and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them, and camped at the sea by Philahoreth, in front of Baalzephon. Verse 10, when Pharaoh drew near, the sons of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they were in great fear. And the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord. Verse 11, and they said to Moses, it is because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Verse 12, is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Let us alone and let us serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Verse 13, and Moses said to the people, fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians who you see today, you shall never see again. Verse 14, the Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be still. Verse 15, the Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward. Verse 16, lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the sons of Israel may go on dry ground through the sea. Verse 17, and I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they shall go in after them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots and his horsemen. Verse 18, and the Egyptians shall know I am the Lord when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots and his horsemen. Verse 19, then the angel of God, who went before the host of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. Verse 20, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and darkness, and the night passed without one coming near the other all night. Verse 21, then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. Verse 22, and the sons of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on the right hand and on the left. Verse 23, the Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, all of Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. Verse 24, and in the morning watch, the Lord in the pillar of fire and of cloud looked down upon the host of the Egyptians and discomfited the host of the Egyptians. 25, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians. The Egyptians drown in the sea. Verse 26, then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. So Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its usual flow. When the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled into it, and the Lord routed the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. Verse 28, the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. Not so much as one of them remained. Verse 29, but the sons of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on the right hand and on the left. Verse 30, thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. Verse 31, and Israel saw the great work which the Lord did against the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Okay, that's it. Now it's time for questions. Israel, the people. More than anything, more than a country, more than anything, it's a people. And Israelites, the people, got saved. Okay? They walked across the Red Sea on dry land.
How about the Egyptians?
The Egyptians followed them. They were chasing them. And then after all the Israelis got to the other side safely, then the Egyptians were in the bottom of the Red Sea where God parted the waters. And then God let the waters go, and they all drowned in the Red Sea.
The Egyptians are bad.
The Egyptians were foolish because they had Israelites as slaves. They were jealous of them. And then they didn't want to let them go. When God told Moses, hey, go tell Pharaoh to let them go. And Pharaoh's heart was hard. He did not want to let them go.
The Israelites are good.
Yeah, the Israelites are good.